Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hello my friends and welcome to another weekly wrap up. What are we? Are we on 17 now? 16? I think we're on 17. But anyway, welcome so much. I am so excited to talk to you about what I read this last week. But first off, a couple things. One, thank you to everyone who has helped me hit 25K here. That is just crazy actually that I'm finally at 25K. It has been quite a journey. I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, I'm just really thankful to everyone who's stuck around with me, who continues to watch my videos, and everyone who's new here who helped me get there. I appreciate y'all so much. So today we have some books and some fics to talk about. And we want to get right into them. So the second thing is I want to welcome a new channel member. We have Tommy95, Tommy, not quite sure how that is said here, but they joined at the dedicated diva level to my channel. So thank you and welcome. I'm so happy to have you. So let's go ahead and get into these. And we are starting off with a couple fics right off the bat because there was a few that actually had recently finished that I'd been waiting for them so that I could download them, because remember, I don't read the fics until they're finished because I've learned my lesson plenty of times. And a couple of these I'd been holding on to. So this first one that I finished was called Mutually Assured Exposure by Cockatoo is the name of the fic writer. And this one was so interesting. This one's very much AU. There's not even hockey involved in this one at all. We have Ilya, who is actually a very famous corn star. And he actually has started almost his own production company to make the industry a little bit safer and healthier for his people. And it's kind of fun to see where the characters we know and love, like what roles they have within this company. And Svetlana is actually his like CEO of it and does a lot of the booking and planning for who he's going to be doing scenes with. And there are also like Scott Hunter is another one of the performers. And the way that Shane gets involved in it is Shane is actually a OF creator who has been doing this solo, but has become a really big deal. And they are looking to do a collab with each other. So it's going to be this really big event that Ilya Rozanov and Shane Hollander are going to be in a film together. And Ilya is actually kind of surprised at how like obsessed he becomes with Shane. And he sneaks into a couple of Shane's live streams actually on OF. And he honestly just, like, can't believe how obsessed he becomes with him so quickly. You know, he thinks he's really hot stuff. And he is. I mean, definitely. There's a reason why he's at the top of his game. But the collab that they do together, they have this crazy chemistry together where they definitely are really like kind of going at each other, picking at each other, but then once they're filming a scene, it just turns into this explosive chemistry and everything. So yeah, this is a fic of them being co-workers in a sense, because these collabs between them end up doing really well. And finally, they kind of admit that there's more going on. And I really liked the other topics this covered as well, because it does cover how Ilya ended up in the industry, how Shane ended up on OF, and just as like a side spoiler for it, part of the way Shane ends up in this industry is that some revenge corn gets shared of him. And so some videos that he had filmed for a lover, that lover ended up sharing them. And instead of letting it completely ruin his life, Shane realized how popular those videos were, and he's like, well, if these are getting shared without my consent, what if I just start and what if I just make this a business and I get paid to show what I want to show instead of things being shared behind my back. Now, this fic doesn't fully go into like all the levels of the mental health involved in that. And for the most part, it does stay a little more light and fun about, again, the chemistry and the banter between them. But when they're getting to know each other better, there'll be a chapter here or there where they really dive into that. And I just really appreciated how that was done. So, yeah, I really liked this fic. It's definitely not going to be up everyone's alley, but I really enjoyed it. And I think it just goes to show, too, like, the fics I like that almost stay canon compliant, and then some of these ones that just take the characters and throw them into completely AU situations. I have such a fun time with those, too. And this was one of those. So definitely do recommend that one. Okay, and then there was another one that I had been waiting for it to finish. And this was one of the very few fics, because here's the thing, this was one of the very few fics that I got drawn into before it was finished, right? Like I always say, I don't read these till they're finished. And the reason why I had started reading it, I was planning to just bookmark it and come back to it. But the person who shared it on Threads explained that this one had really cool coding done, which if you don't know, like not a lot of, but like it is possible to code your fic and make parts of it interactive and do really cool things with it, right? And one of the fics I had just read that had done this was Shane Hollander's girlfriend. And I had heard about this one, which I don't think I said the name, but I'm sure I put the picture up. That's called RE Hi. And that's supposed to stand for like an email chain, like the RE, like hi. And this begins a relationship between Ilya and Shane when they are literally children. I think they're 11, and they're using like dial-up computers, and their two schools somehow got connected and they are sending emails back to each other. So I imagine it's almost kind of in like maybe a computer class or something where they're learning computers, and they're given the email address of a student in Russia. And so that is how Shane and Ilya first meet each other is through email. And the way this is a coded thing is that if you read it on either AO3 itself, which that is what I did. Like this is one of the only fics I read it on AO3, but I read it on my phone because or no, I didn't. I read it on my tablet so that it was bigger, but I read it on AO3 because when you get to the email, when you hover over it, you can actually scroll up through the email on each email. And then eventually there is even there's some postcards that they send each other. And when you click on them, it will flip over so you can read it. And then eventually when they get cell phones, because again, they become best friends. This is definitely a friends to lovers. It's not a rivals to lovers or enemies to lovers. This is a friends to lovers, pen pals to friends to lovers. But eventually when they get cell phones, the phones are coded and you can scroll through their text messages as well. So it was so cute. Like truly, there's no other, it was so cute. And the way that it went through is that each chapter was a different year, and it basically would cover a whole year, because sometimes they were sending messages multiple times a day, and sometimes they were just sending, like for their birthdays and for Christmas and stuff. And it was so cute because in this story, like, again, it's friends to lovers. So they're both into hockey, but they're friends through, I said they meet when they're 11. They're friends through the time that Ilya's mom dies. They're friends through them both getting better at hockey. They're friends through the draft. And so they actually, you go all the way up through when they first meet each other. And I don't want to spoil the whole fic, but when they first meet each other, it's actually like Ilya comes and stays with them during the summer for 2 weeks. Ilya's mom makes it, or not Ilya's mom, she's gone, I'm sorry, Yuna makes it so he can stay with them for 2 weeks. And so it's just really, it's beautiful. And so, yeah, their lives definitely have a much different path. And they really don't play into the rivalry, like, at all. Like, the stuff tries to make them be rivals, and they don't, like, say they're friends immediately, but they don't play up the rivalry at all, which I know that seems really weird that this is heated rivalry fanfic, but this one was just so fun. And there's still plenty of obstacles to their romance, because there's, you know, Ilya's citizenship, there's still him having his father be alive and dealing with his brother and trying to, like, keep Shane out of that, because it would, like, oh my god, there's a devastating scene, and I won't spoil it for you, but when Ilya's brother finds out he has a pen pal just to fuck with him, he does things to mess it up. And so it was just really sweet. And it eventually, once they've met each other in person, the fic writer does do some scenes like regularly written, but a lot of it was just through coded work, and I loved it. So this was a really great one. And I know I don't normally talk about how, like, spice wise it was or anything, but this was one that they started it out as a, like, not rated fic, and then if there was a scene where there was spice in it, there would be, like, a warning at the beginning of the chapter. Whereas if you are reading a fic that says it's explicit, you just know you're in for, like, sex scenes could exist. But this one was not rated, and there were a couple scenes with them, but mostly it was just, like, I enjoyed this one so much. Like, I'm so glad I read it. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. Just because it's so cool too. Like, it's only one of a couple I've read that was coded, but I may actually search some that are coded in the future, because it's just really fun. It's so cool to see how creative people, of course, not just in the heated rivalry fandom, like, fandom everywhere inspires people to be so creative. And I just love that about people, how creative we can be. It's amazing. Okay. Now let's get into some other books here. So I read His Empress by Amelia Rossi, and this is book 3 in, I don't even remember what this series was, but, you know, it's the His Tesoro, His Juliet, and this is His Empress. And this is one that I was so anticipating, and I did really, really enjoy this one. And this one starts with like, really a one-night stand between, let me look up the names here, see if I remember, between Sienna and Dimitri. Now, they're both going under different names at this time, though. So Sienna is the sister of Matteo, who is the Don from book 1. And, or no. Did I say that right? Yes. And Dimitri, that's where it is the older brother of the heroine from book 1, which I forgot what her name is. So they have never met one another. And Sienna is also a hacker, and she's part of this kind of, like, vigilante group that is doing good with her hacking. And there's a job that they end up doing in Paris, and she ends up taking a little extra time because she wants to enjoy the sights of Paris. She hadn't been there before. And she happens to run into a guy at a bar who is going by a different name, but this is Dimitri. And she had never met him because of how the arranged marriage was set up between that couple. Like, both siblings hadn't, like, been at this wedding, right? But yeah, Dimitri is the older brother of the heroine from book 1, and Sienna is the younger sister of Matteo. And so these two end up having this weekend kind of fuck fest between the two of them. They never say their real names to one another. And then Dimitri leaves without leaving his number or any way to contact him, because he is basically running the Bratva now that they've, like, usurped the father, who was the, like, abusive father to the heroine, right? That's the one with the heroine in the wheelchair. And he's the one running everything basically now. And so that like weekend fling was kind of a break for him as well, right? But now he has to get back to reality, and he would never want to pull this woman who he thinks isn't a part of the mafia out of anything. So as things progress, though, this is an accidental pregnancy and then kind of a forced marriage romance. And what happens is she finds out she's pregnant. They thought they used protection the whole time, but they don't. And a cool aspect of this one too is that our heroine has ADHD, and she takes medication for this. And so when she finds out she's pregnant, she's needing to go off of caffeine, like, and her ADHD medication. And so there are definitely some very like real life situational things happening in here, right? That's something that Mila Cain is really good at. Or not Mila Cain, I'm so sorry. Amelia Rossi. I have a Mila Cain to talk about today too, so sorry there. And the way they end up finding out about this, who each other is, because she had no way to contact him. He didn't leave his real name, and he doesn't know he needs to contact her, right? She's just someone who's living in his memory, you know. But his, obviously, again, his sister is her sister-in-law, and when it's found out she's pregnant, they're having a shower for her or whatever. Or is it for that, or is it for someone else? I can't remember what the reason is. Or no, it was that his sister wanted to buy her a gift. His other sister wanted to buy a gift. I don't think they were having the shower yet because she isn't that far along yet. But they've told people she's pregnant. So he hears that Mateo's sister is pregnant. And he wonders if he'll be able to use this against him somehow or something. Like, he's like, oh, his sister is unwed and having a baby. Like, he's like thinking all of these things about how he could manipulate Mateo with this information and yada, yada. But anyway, he brings his, because his other younger sister is also, you know, friends with Sienna. And so anyway, the point being, their two families end up meeting, and he knows that Mateo's younger sister is pregnant, but he doesn't know who she is. And so when he shows up for this meal that is going to be kind of contentious because it's the Bratva and the Mafia meeting up together, and just because that couple who got married is happy, it doesn't mean their families are fully getting along. Like, the alliance is not fully set in stone. And then he sees that it's the girl, it's the woman that he was into, and she sees that it's him. Now, his immediate thought is that she was completely lying and trying to trick him. Because that is the world he grew up in. So he immediately is very defensive and angry that she is Mateo's sister, because he can't think of a way that she lied. Well, her answer is, you didn't tell me who you were either, so why are you assuming I know who you were, right? But he's very upset about this. And he also demands, though, that he wants to be the father of this child, and that he, you know, wants this heir that he's about to have. He's very insistent about that. And so he ends up kind of strong-arming her into marrying him, and he says, we're at least going to stay married till the baby's born. Although he's like, I wouldn't keep your child from you, but I want to be part of this kid's life. And Mateo is ready, of course, he would go to war for his sister. But Sienna, this is also... not Sienna, but it's also his wife's brother, and they've just brokered this peace deal. And so Sienna, you know, she reluctantly kind of agrees to this strong arm situation, let's say. And the thing is, though, she has to go with him to Chicago, move with him, and be there for a while. And what is really hard about this book is that he really blames her for so long. He thinks she did this on purpose. And so he puts up a lot of walls for her. He also tells his entire staff to not speak English to her. So that just isolates her and separates her even more. He has them only speak Russian in front of her to see if she'll slip up and, you know, be comfortable saying bad things about him or admitting her plan in front of them if she thinks they can't speak English. But I love how she usurps this. Like, she's like, well, I'm going to use a computer program to translate everything they're saying. And she starts trying to learn Russia so she can communicate with the people around her who are taking care of her on a daily basis and everything. And so all of the distance he's trying to keep is all for naught, and they all just fall in love with her, and he's really the holdout in the story for a long time. And that ended up being quite frustrating because this book is quite long, and the amount of blame that he puts on her when, like, they literally did the same thing, right? They both were pretending to be someone else because of their obligations they have day to day. And it's just so frustrating for a good part of the book. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Now, eventually though, like, they use this, I'm not saying it's a trope because I know that it can be true, but she's very horny while she's pregnant, and he does the whole, like, well, I'm your husband, I'm gonna be the only one who satisfy you. And for him to kind of compartmentalize the fact that he doesn't trust her fully, when they are together like that, they will call each other the names that they did when they hooked up, to try to, like, he wants to keep this kind of emotional distance from her, because he doesn't trust her. And so there's role playing to a extent, but it feels very like he's very much trying to, like, other her from being, you know, someone he could trust and everything, which is definitely difficult in some aspects. But overall, this was still a really strong entry. I really loved the beginning, and I even loved when she was really giving it back to him, because he tries to act like he can make things miserable for her. He can do this, but, like, I was laughing at that a bit because I'm like, dude, there's only so much trouble you can give her, because her brother is not going to and your own sister is not going to let you mistreat this woman. And he just doesn't have the heart to do it anyway. He's not this, like, bad guy, but he's just always had to watch his step and watch his back. And so to have her, you know, have, like, got past his defenses and then find out that she's actually the sister of someone who was an enemy, it's just very difficult for him to trust her after being wronged like that. And I get it, but it also is like, she's the mother of your child and you're punishing her. It's awful. And then I also did really like the ending and how that played out. So yeah, I ended up at this one with a 4-star, and it's a 4 on the spice scale, and it is available now for you to read. Next up, I read Direbound by Sable Sorensen. So this is one that I read for an annotated pre-order, another fantasy that got picked for me to get through. And I was really intrigued by this one too, because from everything that I've seen, and I'll be honest, it is very much, this is my favorite word right now, an amalgamation, so a mix together of a lot of fantasy tropes or setups that we maybe have read before, okay? But it also did them in a way that I just had so much fun reading the story. So though I have some questions and some annoyances with this, it really, to me, is all dependent on what the next book is, okay? Because I think this is supposed to be a trilogy. That sounds like something the author would do. I don't know that. But the next book actually comes out May 5th, so it's coming very soon. And I definitely want to continue this series while it's sharp in my mind. We'll see if I'm able to do that, but I would like to, so we'll see if I can. But it being a mix-up of all of of a bunch of stories, to me it really depends on where it's going to go from here, on if I will really love this series or if it's just an average one. But this book it's actually hard to say too, because this first book, in regards to this being a romantasy, it's hard to talk about who the couple is, because this also is a love triangle. And I don't want to, like, spoil things about where that's going, because while I know where it's going, like, it's clear to me who the end game interest is going to be. How that changed, like, was such a shock to me. Like, how it's revealed, I was not prepared for that. So I just want to be careful. I don't want to ruin that for anyone else, because yes, this one definitely is one that there is a love triangle, and it seems to me clear who the end game will be, but I also was pretty darn convinced by the other person in the love triangle that I really liked them, and how things were going, and I just didn't see how we could switch it up. So I don't know, that's so vague, but let me just say I'm not going to say much more about the romance in this because there's so much more we still have to get to in other books. So let me say that. But anyway, this is about, I'll just talk about the heroine then. This is about Marin, who living in this fantasy kingdom where the kingdom's at war with these hideous creatures called siphons who are basically vampires. And then she's from this kingdom that they have people can bond with direwolves, and the direwolves are a part of the king's army forces, let's just say. So again, this story feels like amalgamation of things. It felt like very much Fourth Wing. It had aspects of Hunger Games and a few other fantasy situations like this where you're being bonded to an animal, you're fighting bonded to that animal, like those type of things, right? But I love that it's wolves. Instead, like, I love dragons, I love wolves, I love horses, I love all these creatures, right? And Marin has a younger sister and a mom who is sick/mentally ill. And so Marin is doing a lot of the breadwinning. She takes part in these fights that happen in her city. So she's a tough chick. She's not a weakling. She's smart. And something else that's happening in this in her village anyway, is that children are being kidnapped by these people called nabbers. And we aren't 100% sure what's happening to them, but I will just say it is definitely connected with the enemy, why these children are getting kidnapped. Let's just say that. And Marin has done a pretty good job keeping her sister safe up to this point and providing for her mother and her sister. Until one night, her sister gets kidnapped when she is spending some time with her boyfriend, and she feels like an absolute, and I feel weird calling him a boyfriend because it's a fantasy, but I'm just going to say boyfriend, her partner. And her sister goes missing. So immense sense of guilt that she'd spent some time away with her lover, and now her sister's gone. So what she decides to do impulsively, but also it makes complete sense that she would, being the type of chick that she is, she goes and volunteers for the army. Now, as I had said, the direwolves are a part of the fighting forces for this kingdom, but not everyone gets bonded to a direwolf. And in fact, Marin and the people in the villages don't have the best opinion of direwolves. They think that those bonded to them, that they don't really care about the lower class people. They're the king's lackeys. They're not really being effective. And so there's just a very bad thought about them. But you can also be a part of the army, or some people get drafted into the army too, but she chooses to volunteer. And again, not everyone's supposed to get bonded to the direwolves, but it turns out that this round of new recruits recently is going to have to be bonded to a direwolf, or try. Anyway, there's so many little rules and stuff, I just don't have time to go all through it. But the point is, she doesn't want to be bonded to a direwolf, but she ends up, to get to join the army, she's going to have to go through this first trial, basically, to see if a direwolf wants to bond with her. And if that doesn't work and she survives this first trial, she can then join the army and be on her way. She's told that the direwolves take into consideration whether you want to bond with them or not, because if, like, most people who compete in this thing do want to be bonded to a direwolf, because it is pretty freaking cool. But if you don't want to be bonded to one, they're not going to force you, because it takes teamwork and unity and you wanting to be there for this connection to work. And this is what's, kind of like Fourth Wing and some other situations like this. If you or your direwolf dies, the other one dies as well. So why would a direwolf want to bind themselves to a human who doesn't want to be there? Because you're not going to have a great success and you're both going to end up dead. So she's basically going along on this run because she has to, so that she can join the army and try to find her sister. However, once she gets to the top of this mountain where all the direwolves are waiting to choose a partner, a bonded partner, one of the direwolves named Anasa, who is actually quite revered by people because she's never taken a rider. She's very old. She's supposedly very well thought of by the other direwolves. This direwolf forces Marin to bond with her. She forces the bond upon her, which we're told is never supposed to happen. We can't believe this happened. And on top of all of that, Anasa won't explain to her why they're bonded together or what the fuck is going on. So now Marin hasn't been able to just join the army. She's been bonded with the direwolf. This direwolf doesn't want to talk to her. And if she can't somehow have teamwork with this direwolf and complete the training, both of them are going to end up dead, and no one will, no one's looking for her sister, if not. So she's now reluctantly bonded to a direwolf and must go through the direwolf training and trials to become a full-fledged rider and all these things. So as I've said, definitely sounds like a few other fantasies you've read before, but with wolves. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Also, as I said, I'm not even touching on so much. Of course I'm not. It's a huge book. There definitely is relational confusion. There are friends she meets along the way. There are tons of reveals that are going to happen. And you're going to, you'll find out why she was forced to bond with that direwolf, why Anasa doesn't want to talk to her. There's fated mates involved somewhere in here. There's a corrupt kingdom. There's who's taking the children. Will we be able to find that out? Is her sister still alive? So all of these things you find out through this book. And I enjoyed this a lot. Like I said, I was reading this one for an annotated, so I was annotating it and reading it, and I had a really great time. My main critiques are having to do with the love triangle, which again, I don't want to touch on because I don't want to spoil anything. Having to do with the length of this story and having to do with how much backstory there is. There's just so much to fit in there. Now, again, this is where when I said at the very beginning of this that how much I like this book will kind of be dependent on what the next book does. Because if the next book dives right in where we ended, trusts us to remember everything we've learned, and thrusts us forward into the next phase of this story, I will like this book even more, right? My caveat is if you did all of this back-splaining for us, if you've set up this whole world for us, in the next book, I now want us to go. Because it was a lot of groundwork that had to be laid in this book, and it really bogged it down. Now, again, I'm not saying it's not all info that I needed, right? One of my problems with Souls in Ruin last week was that I had no clue what the fuck was happening in this kingdom, or why the kid, or all of those things really bothered me, and it was solely focused on 3 people the whole time. That's all that it was. This definitely introduced us to a lot of things, and I feel like I have a good sense of this world. The things I'm not telling you are because they're spoilers if I would tell you. I feel like I have a pretty good sense of this country and the layout, and not the layout, the geography, but the power structure and the things going on. I feel like I have a good sense of that, and I want the next book to build on that. So for now, I currently have Direbound sitting at a 4-star, and it's a 2.5 on the spice scale. There is actually a BDSM relationship happening in this one, though I would call it very lightly so, because this is still... this book isn't an erotic romance. It's not focusing on that. But there was a actually pretty well handled BDSM relationship in this book. And yeah, I have a lot of feelings about that as spoilery that I won't get into. So I enjoyed Marin and Anasa and the direwolves. And though there were some things very frustrating to me, I think that the next book is going to take them as a jumping off point. And so if all of this groundwork that was laid means the next book really is that book 2, breaks book 2 syndrome and just goes for it, I will be very pleased, right? So this one being called Hunger Games meets Fourth Wing with wolves is definitely true. And I'm okay with it because I sometimes like those things. So, okay, moving right along though, because then I had Sacred Ruin by Millicane. So lots of Mafia this week, but both of these came out back to back. So I actually was able to get a physical copy of this one, right? Because Millicane's books are being published by Dell, which I just love. Like, I have them up here now too. So this is book 3 in the original Sin series. And this one, though, I was nervous about it, but I was so interested to see how Milliken was going to handle it. And the reason being for this one is that this one takes place basically at a mental institution, and Katarina, our heroine, was placed in Hollow Hall Institute against her will, because she wouldn't marry this man named Ivan. It was supposed to be an arranged marriage, and she absolutely refused. And so to force her compliance, she was pushed into this place. And she's being experimented on and tortured and abused in this place. Now, it's not the most graphic that I've ever seen of the actual torture. And our hero ends up at this place very soon, which I'll come back to him in a second. But I was cautious going into it, and I gave myself full permission to DNF this at any point if it became too much, because if you're new here, maybe you don't know, but forced institutionalization, though it is a very, very niche trigger warning, it is a huge one for me. But it also is a trigger warning that, like, I was aware of because of the description and because of what it is. So to me, that's the thing of trigger warnings, is like, I just need to know if certain things happen in a book. I don't need, like, to completely avoid the book because they happen. I just need to know they happen. So anyway, she was put in this place because she refused to marry someone, and also supposedly because her mother pulled some strings to, like, keep her safe from some things as well. I don't know. But she's been forced to be here for the last 3 years, and it's just hell for her. Then we have Massimo, who he is basically a hitman as well as a very, like, broken guy. And I'll just tell you this, like, his mother was actually forced into a place like this one at one point, and I believe she even died in one. And so he holds a lot of anger towards places like this. But he actually goes undercover as a priest who's supposed to be kind of like shadowing the work that's being done at Hallowed Hall. Because again, it is a, like, religious mental institution being run by priests and nuns who are not necessarily, qualified to be doing the type of stuff that they are. And so Massimo is there for a hit job for a specific priest who's there. But he also is learning information about the place to possibly see if something can be done about it. But again, he's a hitman. He's a paid gun. He's also going after very specific things. So, but also his hit jobs fuel his retribution plans as well. So when he, though, meets Katarina, he feels for her, and he does a few things that kind of make her life a little bit easier. But again, he's not there to rescue her. He can't get distracted, but he sees this beautiful broken girl there, and she very much intrigues him. And so when he comes across a few situations where she's being abused at different times, he does some little things to, like, get her out of it. But again, he's there for one purpose and one purpose only. However, when he goes to complete his hit, the priest he's there to kill actually has Katarina locked in the closet because he's abusing her. And when Massimo shows up at the door, he thinks it's his colleague. He shoves her in a closet, and Massimo enters, kills the man, and then is going to leave when he hears her gasping in the closet. And even at that point, he's about to kill her. He's going to kill her. Oh, I actually forgot. He hadn't fully killed the guy this is very important. He hadn't fully killed the guy he was there to kill yet. He had knocked him out, and he was setting it up to look like an unaliving. That's right. This is very important, because when he finds Katarina, he's like, oh no, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm going to have to end you because you can't ruin my cover. And to prove herself, she actually, like, runs past him and knocks the chair out from under the guy who he was setting up to look like he hanged himself. And she commits the murder, and she says, because he was saying, you're a witness to what I was doing. And she's like, now you're my witness. And we both have something on each other. Now, he kind of laughs at her industriousness, but he's also like, oh, girl, I'm a hit. Like, I can't risk this. I got to out you. And she says, I want to hire you. I want to hire you to kill someone for me. So then you won't want to kill, so then it's like, you won't want to kill me. He's got a job. I got a job. And he's like, how are you supposed to pay me? You're in a mental institution. And she says, I know where they keep all the cash in this place. If you will kill the other 2 priests here for me, who've also been torturing her for all these times, you can get the money and help me get out of here. Now, let's just say Massimo finds that very intriguing, but instead of getting money, he actually says, you know what? I'll take this job for you, but I'm choosing my payment. And my payment is basically he wants to sleep with her. And do lots of sexy and lascivious things to her. And you know what? She's been stuck here all these years. She thinks he's hot. He's going to help her get out of here. She agrees. She's like, okay, deal. You want my body? You want to do what you want to do to me? Fine. If you kill these men and get me out of here, let's go. And so begins them now both working together to actually uncover what's going on there and kill these 2 bad priests. And I've said enough. But I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Though, again, I don't know what it was this week. Maybe I was just being a super picky bitch this week. I've got to admit. But there was just something missing from this one that is missing from some of the earlier ones for me. This really got lost in the sauce. It was very dark. There was actually a couple scenes where things get very gory for no reason. Some things, I don't know. I know it's a Mafia Romance, guys. I know that. But it just wasn't in the style of the story. And then these like crazy things would happen. So I don't know. Again, I feel like I'm just being really picky with this one. But I enjoyed it. And so don't take my pickiness as a reason not to like this one. But I did end up at a 4-star for this one. It's a 4 on the spice scale. I think a lot of it is just like, it was so dark in some places. And then other times it would turn into almost a farce in ways. And you guys know that can be tough for me because I'm like, pick a tone with a story like this. So moving right along, I also had one last kind of Mafia Romance. I don't know. This is where I'm struggling a teeny bit with this one because this is Sullivan by Melanie Moreland. And this was actually kind of a surprise release from her. Which, when she said she had a surprise release coming, I should have guessed that it was Mafia, because that's also what she's done with the other series too, but it just didn't click for me. But we have Sullivan, who is actually a cousin to Niall and, I can't remember his name, Finn, and he's also a lawyer that works for them sometimes. But he's actually based in Scotland right now. He's Irish, but he's based in Scotland. So this is the Irish Mafia, kind of. Remember, the Mafia by Melanie Moreland are based in Canada, so it's a weird mix of it. They're really more part of like a syndicate of different organized crime that work together. But yeah. And what happens is that we also have Autumn, she's from Canada, and she's actually traveling for work. And so she's doing a part-time stint at a place where Sully's cousin works. And when she has a weekend, Sully's cousin actually tells Autumn about this cabin that the family takes turn using, and if she'd like to get a little weekend away, she should go and rent and use this cabin. Her family won't mind, and no one's using it right now, and she deserves to have a little break. Well, it turns out Sully also is taking a long weekend from work, and long story short, they both end up at this cabin, and they end up snowed in because there's a freak snowstorm. And they have a little weekend fling, and only one bed, and we need to share warmth together situation in this cabin. And this is an insta-love story, so I'll just tell you that. He's instantly in love with her, wants to find a way to make her stay in Scotland, and I can marry you to keep you here, and I'll find you a job long term, and let me take care of it. Like literally in 48 hours, the man who has never thought about marriage or wanting to be with anyone is locked down on this girl. So full-blown insta-love. Now, here's the thing. Melanie Moreland is notorious for insta-love. She absolutely is. I totally get it. But what I have learned, which I didn't remember this, is that this was originally a, like, novella, from what I've heard, that she included with an anthology. So that weekend at the cabin, one-night stand scenario was the whole story. And when I got that context after finishing this book, because I do have kind of a harsh rating for this one, and I'm sorry, but it's true. When I finished the book and I was writing my review, I saw someone else comment that this was originally in a novella. So the insta-love part now makes much more sense. Not that there can't be from a weekend one-night stand, but it makes more sense that they have them fall in love so fast when this is a book that is over 300 pages. If it was originally just that one-night stand and it was only like 70 pages, it makes sense that they fall in love so fast. And I did not know that it was a novella first. I'm just going off of this book because it was turned into a full-length book where they're now like basically living together after knowing each other 5 days. And again, it's not that I've never read a story like that. Okay, I absolutely have. But it was so rushed that the fact that it was 300 pages and they were in love after 70 pages and she's going to move to Scotland to be with him. I mean, she's already there for work, but she's only supposed to be there for a short time. She's going to move to Scotland for him. And then to throw in some suspense, because this is connected to the Mafia families, of course, she has a stalker from her past who's just going to pop up in the story at some point. I won't tell you when, but at some point. And then their dialogue with each other was the cheesiest stuff I've heard in a long time. And come on, your girl reads romance novels 24/7. I am okay with some cheesy dialogue. But he was so accommodating and so sweet to her. And just, this is a man who's a lawyer for the mafia sometimes. And it was sickly sweet. Like sickly sweet. And then the conflict in the end was ridiculous, and I just didn't like this. And I'm sad because, again, I've read plenty of Melanie Moreland over the years now. I've enjoyed pretty much all her other Mafia ones, which, again, they do fall pretty quickly in those. But I'll tell you the difference. Because this one started with the one-night stand at the cottage, all right? I said it. Because this started with the one-night stand at the cottage, and then we brought in the suspense element at the end, there wasn't that suspense at the start to bond them together. I know the one-night stand is supposed to do it, but literally every other one of the books from Melanie Moreland that are in her Mafia Men, there is some incident that pushes them together. And so their connection and their bonding over it happen quickly, except for, is it Niall that is like, it's a second chance? So they already had been in love, and I really like that one as well. You know, in Finn, the girl has just been rescued from being attacked. In Roman, the girl, her sister sells her off to sex trafficking and he rescues her. So all of these scenarios and those ones, there's more suspense included in the story. And this one, there just wasn't. And so I felt really empty by the story. And at one point, I was literally nauseous at them overly placating each other and just saying how much they love each other over and over and over again. And I was like, it really felt like she was just, this should have been a novella and the rest of it was filler to make it long enough for it to be produced and sold as a full-length book on its own. And I know that's harsh, but I have to be honest, right? Like, I love Melanie Moreland's books, but this was a miss for me, and it honestly was so obnoxious by the end that I was skim reading so hard the last 50 pages because I was like, you have nothing else left that this book is going to offer. And I just, you know, if I hadn't been listening to I listened to the first 60%, and then I was at my cousin's, so I was reading it on my Kindle for the rest of it. You know, if I hadn't have listened to Maxine Mitchell and John Lane start the story out, I probably wouldn't have gotten past 50 pages because all of the, like, it just felt so rushed. And it's like, why did you make it 320 pages then if you were going to keep it so surface level, so thin? And this girl who used to be like, her suspense part is she had a stalker before. To let a man completely take over your life this quickly, it stretches credulity to a point that I was like, okay, now I'm feeling like the person being bitchy about romance, and I don't like doing that. So I gave this one 3 stars, and it's a like 2.5 on the spice scale, and it was too much for me. It was too much for me. I really don't recommend this one, especially after her other Mafia books. I didn't care for this at all. Okay, and then one final one to round us out. I have one more fic for you, and this one was so fun. It's really quick. It's only 120 pages when you put it on your Kindle, but it's called Shane Hollander is Dating a Nice Man from Montreal by Tricky Snail is who wrote it. So this fic goes off of the premise of the line, right, when Una says, weren't there any nice men in Montreal? I think Una's who says it. And Shane says, I'm sure, maybe. And it's this fic that, what if it wasn't Ilya that Shane did an ad with in the beginning of his career? What if he did an ad with a model instead? And they end up exchanging numbers and they start dating. And so in this story, Shane is dating this guy named Ben. They've been together casually and now a little more seriously for the last 4 years. And Ilya is still his rival in sports, but he never really bonded with Ilya in the same way. Now, Shane has a crush on Ilya, and Ilya has a crush on Shane. But because Shane had been seeing Ben all this time, things never escalated with Ilya. Ilya wasn't the one he was experimenting with and doing things. He's been with Ben. Now, Ben doesn't have anything to do with hockey. He was just hired to be a part of that shoot. And now I think he's even in business or something like that. And maybe he wasn't even a model. Maybe I just made that up. I don't know. But they met each other when he worked on that ad. I remember that clearly. But the point is, it's now years later. And nobody in Shane's life really likes Ben. And Shane, being the kind of people pleaser that he is, and he's used to Ben, he doesn't know what he could be missing out on. And so really where this fic is fun, and I don't want to spoil the whole thing because it's short, is that Jackie really doesn't like Ben. And Hayden, he doesn't like Ben either. And they come up with a plan to break up Ben and Shane. And they have these different levels to the plan. And the fourth, plan D, the plan that they think is just absolutely crazy, is getting Ilya Rozanov involved. So I'll just say, first they're going to try some other things, but they know that Shane will fight to keep things comfortable and orderly. So unless they invite in someone who's a bit crazy and willing to poke at the bear, things aren't going to go well for Ilya. Now, also in this world, Ilya is out as bisexual, and Shane is casually known as, gay. Because, he doesn't call Ben his boyfriend, publicly, but, his friends and some of his teammates know. And it's kind of that same thing where, he gets told by the NFL to, keep it on the DL, or not the NFL, the NHL, to keep it on the DL, and he can do what he wants. So people know, but yeah, Ilya is bisexual and very out about it, and he ended up getting traded to Ottawa when Boston found out he was bisexual. He ended up getting traded to Ottawa. So that means he's living closer to where Shane lives, which is how when he gets asked to help them break Shane and Ben up, he's only too pleased to step in and lend a hand. So this was adorable. It was great. It does have a trigger warning for cheating, but I don't want to spoil how it happens. But, I mean, it's obviously not Shane cheating on Ilya. He's with Ben, and we do see Ilya and Shane together in it, so there's that. But anyway, Really enjoyed that one. So there you go. That is everything that I read this week. Let me know which things you're excited for. We just have a few days left of April, and then it is going to be time for all the readathons that kick off and for May to be here. And I just can't wait. And in May, the off-campus series is going to start. That's going to be amazing. So yeah, I can't wait to see what's going to happen with all of that. So anywho, thank you so much for watching, friends, and we'll see you next time.